Hello, folks. A continuing review or visitation of the MERP system, not the rules and the mechanics of the game system, but the books themselves, the territorial descriptions, the source books, what have you. As I said in prior installments, uh, plenty of people have reviewed MERP itself, the combat system, the rediscovering of it, and all this other hoopla. On the other hand, I'm a big fan of it myself. This particular one is called the Denizens of the Dark Woods. Now, between you, me, and the Dupree, I have not yet figured out how to take a picture of this thing so you can read the title and it's not backwards to you. I mean, sorry, but I'm using it in my laptop and I don't have a lot of hands either, Clinton. So we do what we got to do, right? Now, like I said before, even the modules that they created for this game system actually fit a niche and do a good job of further fleshing out the flavor and the world of J.R.R. Tolkien in ways that the bigger, larger books don't necessarily cover in other game systems. ICE and the creators of the MERP system, well, they did some I want to say a bit more of their homework, where they put a little bit more heart into it than a lot of the other game material I see in other game systems. Not knocking their stuff, I'm just saying that there's definitely a bit of a difference to this particular stuff, and it's a good thing. Denizens of the Dark Woods is an actual module set in Eastern Mirkwood. If you're familiar with the particular setting, it focuses on a couple small mini adventures, if you will. So, like a lot of source book or adventure modules, it's actually several smaller increments interlinked with each other to some degree. Although the way they write these, they can be easily used individually. So one of the advantages I liked about them is that if I needed to just have an impromptu game session and I don't know what to do with people, I can just yank this thing out, throw it in, and it works. And a lot of it will, with a little bit of tweaking, can work in any other game system in any other location if it fits it with the fits the setting, I should say. And when we talk about the particular thing itself, it come with, well, you gotta love the artwork and stuff. The lady that did a lot of this stuff, and it's my understanding, was one or two people that did most of the artwork. Now, did some good work, and it improved over time. You can see it from some of the earlier Rollmaster stuff, that it wasn't learning their trade. Now, I mentioned this in the previous blog, that in the past, a lot of times, when playing with new players, especially people who are only familiar with the Dungeons and Dragons system, it was just simpler and faster. I'm lazy to use that system and use this as the background than to do the conversions, or to teach them the Rollmaster D100 system, which is actually it's not brain science. And there's the MERP system itself is much simpler than the basic Rollmaster, but that was the way it's supposed to be. The Rollmaster is the expanded version, the advanced version, if you will, of the game systems that ICE use. There's nothing wrong with that, but these people were thoughtful, and like I said, they had their stuff together. So what included was instructions on how to modify it to adjust it to the D20 system, or a D6 system, even a D12 system. It's all listed here. Then we have a conversion chart here too, and it explains how to go about it. And it's not, like I said, rocket science. It's not very difficult to do. Like I said, always said to players, well, how do I do this? And I said, well, what is it? But you just lop a zero off. If you're using a D100 and you're using a D20, well, you're not going to use a D200, so it's basically lop a zero off in half. And here, what they say in their conversion chart in this particular module, it says that for every +5 that you would award it as a modifier for the D100 system, you would allow a +1 for the D20. See, there you go. What do they do? They divided it by 5, which, 20 goes into 100 5 times. So there you have it. So if you got a D100 and it's a +5 to modifier to hit something or to cast something, well, a D20 would give you a +1. So no big deal. Real easy. And they thought about it and made sure that we understood that, because that was something ICE didn't have a problem with. Rollmasters, the people who created Rollmaster, did not have a problem with the idea that their players, their customers, might not utilize the system in the way that they think it best used, and they may use it for other game systems. They had no problem with that. In fact, I think they encouraged it. If you look at some of their uh, range of things, the only thing today, equivalent today, would be White Wolf and some of their stuff that Riff Lords or Riffs. There you go, Riffs. Riff Lords was a play-by-mail game system I did for a number of years. Anyway, nice black and white map. This particular module did not come with a color fold-out map like some of the source books did. And the gist of the setting was set roughly 1,000 years before the roughly 1600 Third Age. That way, you're not interfering with the story in the novels, and you're just part of the backstory history of the world. And except in a lot of the modules, unlike the source books, where they actually give you categorized venture ideas for this setting, this age, and this age, and this age. Well, most of the modules they don't put any of that in there. They just leave it blank, and so it's up to the GM to modify it to fit whatever timeline they chose to have. So when we're dealing with things like, in this case, the adder cop attack, the spider attack on this village, it could take place right after Frodo's Bilbo's group went through the forest and stirred all those spiders up, or it could have taken place, 2,000 years before when Mirkwood started to become dark, when it was the Greenwood, so or whatever the timeline on that was. Like I said, it's good material, good stuff. We go on. Right, it talks about the village and the town, and then the spiders, and then the task and encounters. It moves on into the next adventure, which is Troubles with Trolls. And it says this adventure may follow the preceding scenario attack, Addercop attack, or it can stand alone. It is not, however, intended for first level player characters. Depending on the party size strength, second, third, fourth level characters should be able to successfully complete the task. There you go. See, it's designed from the get-go to either work with, in conjunction with what's going on in the book, or individually. So if you have you're looking for a short campaign, you could base it in 3 or 4 sessions off of this one book. As a GM who's struggling to come up with material or have the time to do something properly, isn't that what modules are about? I think a lot of people have I don't know, don't quite grasp or don't value the modules as much as they could from that perspective. I'm guilty of that myself. I bought a number of modules. I don't buy modules for things like Dungeons and Dragons anymore because I make my own. I will find the time to make it, or I dip into the vast piles of crud I've got piled up in boxes right now, and that I can utilize to flesh out. So the longer you do this, the more you save. That's where this laptop's becoming eventually going to hold its own, because it will replace a half dozen boxes full of notes and notebooks and paperwork, right? They're eventually rotting and getting old and serving as homes for some of the mice in the garage. Uh, which, unrelated note, personal note, that I had a lot of my stuff in storage for a long time, and I came back to look after my mom and to take it out of storage, and bits and pieces of it are missing. Many of my lead miniatures disappeared or fell down a woodchuck's hole, which is terrible because I dug them out. I dug out what I could, but who knows how many hundreds of dollars worth of that stuff is buried under the barn now for somebody's future kid to dig up, right? I guess there's some positive there. My mother passed away a week and a half ago, and So everything we were working for is now changed. Pretty much everything we have has to go back into storage until we can sort ourselves out and get ourselves to our own place. Yeah, just why one of the reasons I live in this thing. Anyway, back on we got troll there, and you know, ain't that a beautiful thing? Look at that nasty bastard. Ooh, I'm just saying, nasty beastie, right there. What is it that nobody likes the nice troll? They always make them look forward, and trolls vary from game system to game system, sometimes significantly, even though they have a lot in common. I've noticed that. That's a topic for another thing. Anyway, then the third one here is the tithing train. It's got to do with the baronings or something. Not so sure what. Gives us great information on something called Elmarian's Keep, which is based on the fact that a bunch of the goblins are inhabiting it, or orcs are inhabiting it at the moment. I believe that this was somebody else's at one point, and they either lost it or were killed, and or moved off. Now, one of the things that a lot of these modules are set in a certain timeline that follows the Great Plague, which devastated huge parts of Western Middle Earth, especially in Gondor and the Southlands along the coast and up the Undun Valley, up the Great River Valley. This particular, it even goes to a point in here at the very beginning, saying that the village that starts this module, they actually, because of their isolation and location, did not suffer any casualties from the plague. So there's a reason why lots of other stuff out there in the world is now ruined or abandoned or in hands of the unfriendly humanoid races. Uh, Toward the end here, they got the encounters. They discuss the orcs. They have an encounter table. They have a beast table. Like I said before, now another thing that sets MERP apart from a lot of your other mainline fantasy role playing games is the fact that they don't have a huge, wide range of beasts and creatures and monsters. They just don't. I mean, we're going to discuss this one here a little later. Uh, geez, how many monster manuals do I have for Dungeons and Dragons? In any given version, I'd say three is the average, three plus. I mean, I think because I've got several source books that also are more or less a bestiarity of some sort. I mean, they more focus on other things like the deities and demigods and Bean Folio, that kind of stuff. Those are all monster manuals of a sort. Uh, you won't find that in Mirth. One of the things you don't find is largely, the devils and the demons and the pantheons of other gods. It's just the mythology for J.R.R. Tolkien's world is very well established, and the stuff that looks like a demon, i.e., the Balrog, well, they're not. They're something that was twisted and created by an ancient Dark Lord who still roam the world or still haunt certain portions of it, and that's what it is. The same thing with the sheer volume of magical beasts. You have lots of magical beasts in Dungeons and Dragons, and that in parts because you have lots of magic users and sorcerers and alchemists that go around tweaking and messing with things, and occasionally they get something right or get something wrong, and then we have something new. MERP doesn't have that. The majority of your wildlife encounters are actually going to be actual wildlife, which I've noticed, as GMing in fantasy setting games, a bear comes up and can mess up a low level character or even a low level group of characters. But most players stick their nose up at it and they get a little cheesed. Why are we fighting a brown bear? And I'm like, because the thing's whooping on you. God, you can't handle this. Are you going to handle something much bigger and nastier and carries weapons? I'm just saying, right? It's like the wolves. Individually, they're not much of a threat unless you're sick or you're wounded, or somehow hide up or inability to mess with it. On the other hand, a pack of wolves, if they're played right, can be a mess. Can be a bad day. You know, they'll wear you down. But there you go. I guess that's a lesson in GMing for somebody if you don't know how to do that stuff. Take into account that what you're dealing with. Even in here, they even list things like a short-eared owl. A short-eared owl. How bad's that? What would that do? A level 4, 1 to 10 counter, small size, has 20 hit points, which would be 4 hit points in D&D if you convert it. It's an intelligent predator. Well, I'm going to assume that the owl's not trying to prey on the player characters, but it could be harassing you in some way. Well, reminds me of a story I heard about my cousin smoking a cigarette out in the evening and got dive bombed by a great owl who just took the cigarette right out of his face, or right off his mouth, right out of his face, just swooped down, grabbed it, and flew off. And we don't know why. We don't know why. We're just glad that it didn't start a freaking fire in the field next door. We just thought it was strange. Anyway, special herb table and an NPC table. Like these, I like these. I've always liked these, in part because one of the things that Merc does well that you don't see in too many other game systems unless you get a secondary set of rules and focus on have a player or two that really gets into the herb lore and things like that. But in MERP, it's an actual a important piece of healthcare healing in the game world. In the books, the same way. The hands of a healer, where the king has the hands of a healer, right? Doohickey. So in this case, they have a lot of them, and I've actually used some of these charts in other game systems because they, like it says, they translate. And Dungeons and Dragons has a few examples of herbs and poisons, but they don't go into great length. Now, Rollmaster, on the other hand, Rollmaster has extensive charts of these things in various forms, and I love that. Finds a lot of translation that go with the NPCs as well, because the NPC tables, we're back to that. I'm a lazy DM. I'm sorry, but I'd love to hand tweak every bad guy and every beastie that come along, and I try to modify them enough so that they're not just canned right out of the book. But it just isn't enough time in the day, especially nowadays when I'm older and I got a job and family, blah blah blah. So we got lots and lots of these tables and pre-generated NPCs conveniently provided to us by the creators of the 100 or so different game systems that we all hoard. So why not take advantage of those and shoehorn them in or kit bash them in to fit what your needs are in your game system. You know, just one of those little things I've learned to do to make my experience a little easier and my handling of stuff better. So, like I said, Denizens of the Dark Woods, nice little module. It looks almost brand new, don't it, folks? I bought that back in the late 80s, early 90s. What was that? 1989. 1989. And I probably paid, what did I pay? Did I say? $10? $8? I think they were like $8 at that time. I don't see the price on the back. Some of the newer ones put prices on them. But hey, if you can find it, get it, grab it, add it to your collection on the wall. No other reason, it's because it's there. Alright? Till next time.